Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unky Joe here. Unky Joe's Playhouse. Today, part 6 of building a home lab. We're going to actually put our home lab to work. Got a project. So in today's episode of building a home lab, what I like to do, I like to build the home lab. And we've done episode 1 where I told you about how I select hardware. Episode 2, where we talked about networking. Episode 3, what kind of, hypervisor were we going to use to make all this happen. And then episodes 4 and 5 have been about storage and your options there. But today what I want to do is actually put one of these labs to work because I've got a project. I got a project going on in my head. I have a client that has the need to do AutoCAD work remotely, to do graphic artwork remotely. And so I have a question in my mind as to the best way to make that happen and to do it with virtual machines and to share a video card amongst multiple amongst multiple virtual machines. So I've always kind of toyed around with the idea of being able to take a device and put it into a server and then split that device up and share it among many other machines or virtual machines or servers or whatever. And now with the technology we have today, that's possible. We can do that. However, it still can be rather expensive. Take, for example, the Tesla grid series of cards. In order to make something like that happen, in other words, say my Tesla P40s, for those of you that don't know, I built a whole Dell R730 around dual Tesla P40s about a couple of years ago. So the idea behind those cards into that Dell R730 was to use them for AI and that kind of thing. And they've kind of outgrown their usefulness. They're not really what I would call state of the art. You don't get good results with using these with AI, is what I'm trying to say. You get much better results with a single 30, 60, 12 gig video card than you would with something like these Tesla P40s. They're just not suited for AI like they were a couple of years ago. So I want to put them to use doing something else. So one of the things I've always wanted to do is be able to have a large video card, or have a video card with a lot of RAM on it, and be able to share that video card with multiple virtual machines and see how that performs. And today that's what we're going to do. We're going to take one of those Tesla P40 video cards. We're going to divide that up and we're going to share it. We're going to split that 24 gig of RAM that this card has, and we're going to split that evenly. Of course, you can't do odd sized. In other words, each virtual machine has to have the same amount of VRAM as the others do. It has to be equally spread out. And so there is a program out there made by Nvidia for their grid software. It's licensing software that turns these features on. And if you know how to do some registry magic in Windows, you can turn these features on as well. But that's it's not what this video is about, and we don't want to get a strike from the old Google people. So it's very important that I not show you how I did this. I'm going to explain to you what I did, and I'll give you a little glimpse of it, but it's not going to be a soup to nuts tutorial, but I will point you in the right direction to go get some information if you want to try this in your home lab setup, because I think once you see it in action, you'll see the benefits. So today we'll be working with the Dell R730. That machine is running Proxmox. It's got a couple of Xeon processors, I think E5 20-something series, 2500 series V4s. I believe the server has 64 gig RAM. We'll see here in a minute. But what we're going to do today is this machine has two of those Tesla P40s. One of them, I'm going to leave it alone. I'm just going to leave that machine. I'm going to leave that video card passed through via Proxmox to a Windows 11 virtual machine and just leave it dedicated to for that one virtual machine. But the other card I'm going to take, and I'm going to split it up into 6 virtual machines, virtual video cards with 4 gig of RAM each. So 6 times 4 is 24. So I'll be able to pass through a virtual GPU to 6 different virtual machines, and they'll be able to use it simultaneously. Now we're going to set this up on the Dell R730 because 1, that's where the Tesla cards are, and 2, it's Proxmox is on there, and I've already got a LabNet set up. So one of the things I had to do was go out and recreate my Windows 11 machines because I wanted them on 24H2, not on 23. Windows 11 23H, whatever it was. So I went ahead and manually reinstalled these machines from scratch. So what I'm going to do now is show you how I do the last 2, how I join them to the domain. And we're going to tie kind of everything we've started learning here in the Homelab series and start putting it together, and you'll start to see some of the benefits of using Windows with Linux, with using this and using that, and piecing it all together to make it all work. You're going to see how powerful things are. In fact, today we'll be working with a Docker container. We'll be working with Linux in a virtual machine. And we'll be working with Windows servers, Active Directory, and Windows 11 workstations. So enough talking, let's get to work. All right, so we're over here on the Dell right now, and as you can see, I've already got some virtual machines set up. I've got a domain controller, a primary and a secondary. I have a file server. I have a management monitoring server. All those we set up a long time ago. And then I have some Windows 10 lab machines. I have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I've got quite a few of them in there. Some are repeats. We'll go fix those later. But what I want to pay attention to today is the Windows 11 lab units here, and I labeled them all 11E-lab1.labnet20.local because we are on VLAN 20, which is also called LabNet 20, and it's one of our virtual LANs that is separate from everything else on my network. And I just kind of keep it on this Dell 730 so we can play around with it. So the point I was making earlier was that I had created or needed to create a new Windows 11 enterprise image to go with this lab that I'm building because it was not on 24H2, and it was just easier to just reinstall from scratch. So that's what I've done. Now what I'm going to do now is we're going to show you how easy it is once you have certain things in place to set up a Windows 11 virtual machine under Proxmox and to get it assigned a video card using this method. Now, just so you know what we're dealing with, I've also installed a Docker VM here. I just used one of the helper scripts for Proxmox to install a Docker VM, and then off of that Docker VM or on that Docker VM, I then installed Portainer to manage my Docker stuff on that VM, and I installed a program which I will put a link down to in the notes. Okay, and basically what this is it's an open source licensing server for the Grid series of video cards. Now, that being said, I don't know what the legalities are of using this software. I frankly don't care because that's not my bailiwick. We're going to use it in my lab environment because I just want to show you off what the capabilities are when you're using a Grid card, that type of card, in your Active Directory Windows network environment, and virtual, and how you can set it up to use with virtual machines. So that's what that machine is there for. There are complete detailed instructions at the GitHub that I will be linking in the bottom of this video, and you can go follow those instructions there and see if it's something you can use in your home lab, because this stuff is not cheap. Nvidia charges a lot of money for this stuff. Now, I've already got my Windows network set up. We did a Windows lab where I show you how to set up your Windows networking, Windows Lab. So you can go back and check any of those videos and see how I've done that. Also within this Windows Lab, I've got, these are domain controllers. They're also, they maintain the group policy. So this is one of the labs that I play around with group policies on. And you'll see that as we get a machine set up and log into this network, I got some kind of nice little login information there for you to see. But in the meantime, what I did the other day, yesterday, as a matter of fact, was I went out and I created a Windows 11 clean install of 24H2, and then I sysprepped it after doing all the updates. And you can see I put a note on there, Windows 11 24H2 Enterprise, sysprepped 8.2 of 25. And then what I did was tell Proxmox that this was a template. So all I have to do now, if I want to create a new virtual machine off of that, is to clone that template. So that's what I'm going to do. So my next available number is 148. So to keep that in mind, I'm going to right click on this. We're going to choose clone, and then I'm going to choose 148 for the virtual machine ID. And this is going to be 11 Enterprise. This is going to be lab4.labnet20.local. And keep in mind, I type it this way so that I know that the capitalized part is the name of the machine and the lowercase is the domain. You can call this Blue Fluffy Dragons if you want to. It doesn't matter. It's just a placeholder. It's just a name. It's not a field that, gets used somewhere else. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this on SSD1, and I'm going to do a full clone rather than a linked clone, and that'll create a separate virtual machine once it clones it. Now this process can take a few minutes depending on the size of the machine, but you see it'll pop up here with an ID, and it's got a lock on it to let you know it's locked, that machine. It's working on it. All right, so it looks like the clone was successful. It says down here it was okay. So we come over here to this machine. We'll now see that it is cloned the sysprep image. Now what I'm going to do is a couple of things. I'm going to go ahead and add my tags to this. This is a LabNet 20, and it's Windows 11. That way it puts the little labels by them, and we keep it all nice and neat. And then I'm going to go look at my hardware settings. I want to make sure. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is delete that CD-ROM drive. And on this one, I want to tell it not to use any media. And then on the network device, we want to make sure this is set to VLAN 20. LabNet 20 is on VLAN 20. I keep it all consistent, and it's also subnet 20. So we'll click and change that. So now that looks good. Now, at this point, we could go ahead and add the video card to this, and we still should be okay. So let's give that a try. We'll come up here to add, and we'll come over here to PCI device, and we're going to choose a raw device, and then under the vendor, we're going to come down. We're going to sort by vendor and then come all the way down to Nvidia. And you'll see here I have two of these Nvidia Tesla P40s. I have one at ID 3 and one at ID 82. The one at ID 3 is the one I'm dedicating toward being divided into multiple video cards. So that's one I'm going to select. And then because I have this program installed running as a Docker image, I can now choose my MDev type, and we're going to choose 49. So what it is it gives you 4 gig of RAM on this, and a max resolution of 7680 by 4320. I think that's for all the virtual machines. And you can do a max instance of 6. Right now there's only 3 available because I've already used 3. So I'm going to click on OK for there. I'm going to make sure all functions and primary GPU are not selected. I'm going to make sure ROM bar and PCI Express are selected. And then I'm going to click on add. Okay. So now in theory it has added that shared video card into the hardware. So let's come in here to the console. Let's go ahead and let's pull this over. We don't need that much room. Go ahead and click on Start Now. And then I'm going to expand the screen. And hopefully it should start up. Even though we've added now a video card, it's going to go out and detect that. Now, we'll be doing a video on how you set up a Docker container under Proxmox and that kind of stuff. But the deal is I want to save it and show it to you all at one time. There's many ways to set up Docker under Proxmox, so I want to kind of make that a video onto itself. So we'll occasionally talk about terminology, about things I may not have covered in detail, like Docker. But I do use it on a regular basis. In fact, the displays you see going on behind me are running under Docker. They're just they're a Linux program, and they're running as under a Docker image. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with Docker and Linux, and I'm trying to give you an idea what you can do with that with this series of videos. All right, well, since we booted up in sysprepped mode, we're going to have to go through our initial setup, whereas we create an account and that kind of thing. So the reason I'm doing Enterprise, and the reason you should do Enterprise or Pro in your Homelab, is because you can't, you're feature limited in Windows 11 Home. You can't join a domain. You can't do some of the stuff we're going to do in this Homelab series without using Windows 11 Pro or Enterprise or something higher than Home. So you can, again, you can get your hands on Windows 11 Pro and Home. Microsoft makes them available to you. There are all kinds of ways to get them. But anytime you come out of a sysprep image, this is called the out-of-box experience. This is what an end user would see if they were setting up this computer for the first time. Say they just bought it from Dell or whatnot. Now I'm going to choose other sign-in options, and I'm going to domain join instead. Don't worry, it's not going to prompt you to join the domain. You just want to tell it that, hey, you don't need to set up a local account, because now I'm calling this Adama 1 instead of Adama because when I sysprep the image, it did it with the Adama account, and for whatever reason, Microsoft, when you sysprep, keeps that account, and if you try to use the same name, you can't. And come back to me. Okay, so we've entered our security questions. Now we're going to turn off our location awareness and all of this nonsense and accept it. Now, mind you, when I sysprep this image, I loaded all the drivers that are needed for Proxmox. The machine was already configured to be a Proxmox virtual machine. So I've got all the settings the way they're, in theory, supposed to be. So now that I've entered the information to create an account, they're going to go out, they're going to check for Windows updates. Now, this was just updated the other day, so hopefully this won't take long. In fact, it looks like it's actually creating my desktop account as we speak, so hopefully it won't have to go out and do updates. If it does, we're going to break and we'll come back and see what happens. But usually this is an indicator that it is actually creating your desktop, that it's checked and there are no updates that need to be updated. All right, well, that didn't take forever, but it did take a fair few minutes. So it's good to see the virtual machine up. Now let's go to Device Manager. I want to poke around here and see if it sees that video card that we've added, and it does. It hasn't identified it properly, but it does see the video card. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the time zone here. And we're going to set that to Central Time. Right there. All right, now we have a good time zone. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to, if some of you are offended by words or names, now you see here, it knows I'm not a member of this domain. and it's prompting me for my information. This is one of the other reasons I use Active Directory, because if I know the credentials and I can log into my domain from another domain or from another place. Here's what I'm talking about. That might be an offensive term. It's tongue-in-cheek, folks. This is where Sakura puts things that help Unky Joe get things done. So we're going to go to the guest directory. We're going to copy these drivers for Nvidia. I'm going to create a new folder. I'd like to create a work folder, and we'll paste that there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to install those drivers. So we're in the location now, so we'll just double click. Now what's going to happen is it's going to go out and install. Now you've got to use these drivers that I've chosen here, the 539.41. And this is detailed in that article or in the GitHub repository, what you need to do to make all this happen. So again, not going to go into too much detail, but suffice it to say, you need to install these specific drivers if you're on Windows 10, 11, or Server 2019 and Server 2025. And eventually this thing will open and come up. Yeah, yes, please. And okay. So it's going to extract those files. Now, the other thing you can do is turn on Task Manager, and if you're like me and you like to monitor what's going on. And you'll notice we have no video card here. We do have the right number of CPUs. And you notice they're set up as QEMU virtual CPUs. There's a reason I do that. If you need to know the host CPU that this is running on, you can change this back to host later from an emulated. But I just do this so that everything like this works without any problem. I'm just going to do the express install, and this will take about 5 minutes. So you can, and again, I'm doing this on a console. You could also do this remotely. So after this installs, and we'll get remote access to this machine, and then we'll join it to the domain. So all right, so we're back. The install has completed, and you notice now we have an Nvidia Grid P4 4Q, which means, I guess, 4 gig of RAM, because that's what it's got. Now, it didn't tell me that I have to reboot, but I'm going to reboot. I'm going to restart the machine. And then once it restarts, we're going to join it to the Active Directory domain and make sure we have remote access into the machine. And then once I've done that, I'm going to load the license so that this video card will run for more than 90 minutes. I think it's limited to 90 minutes that the video card will work properly, I think, without the license server. I don't know. But here we are. I'm going to go ahead and log on as Adama. Now, keep in mind, these are just local accounts. We haven't joined this computer to the domain yet, so that's what we're going to do next. So we're just rebooting because I like to do that anytime you load a driver, even though it doesn't tell you have to. I like to. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on remote desktop. So I'm going to go in here under settings, and then I will go to system. And then we're going to go to remote desktop, and we're going to turn that on and confirm. Now, you'll need to know the name of the machine or its IP address. Well, this is not going to be the name of the machine. In fact, we're going to go back to system. We're going to go to rename, and we actually have to reboot again because I've got to rename this machine. This is 11E Lab 4. So we'll click on next. So you notice down there, it doesn't, we don't have a license either. So I'm going to go ahead and restart. And then we'll join the domain, and then we'll restart again. And then we'll resolve our licensing error on that video card. And then we'll activate Windows, and then we should be done. That should be all there is to it. And we'll have a machine that'll have up to 4 gig of virtual GPU RAM, VRAM available to it. So it could run, CAD software. It could do some video encoding or decoding. You could use it as a transition spot to re-encode video if you wanted to. All kinds of neat stuff. All right, so we've rebooted now. We're probably going to get that message again about the licensing, and you can ignore that for now. We're focused. We want to get our machine added to the domain so it can inherit some policy settings. So we'll go back here to System. It's renamed it, and we're going to come all the way down here to About. Then we're going to come down here to Domain or Workgroup under About. And you can see your license does not have a valid Nvidia license. That's okay. We're going to join the labnet20.local domain. And we know the username and password on that domain because we set that up previously. Okay, so welcome to the LabNet 20. Go ahead and close, and we're going to restart. Now, this time, once it restarts, we will log in as the domain administrator account with the domain administrator account, and then we will proceed from there. So hopefully this will boot up here fairly quickly. And it does. Whoop. I hit the wrong key. So this time we're going to choose other user. And even though it says LabNet 20, I always find it's a good practice to type in the domain name and then a backslash and then the username the first time you log in after joining it to a domain. You do what you want to do, but that's what this dude does. So once we log on now, then we should be joined to the domain, and we should be able to see everything out there, and we should be able to then remote into the system and take care of some other stuff. So again, that was the first time I've logged in with this machine being a domain member, so it took a few minutes, a couple of minutes. It wasn't bad. And now if we come to settings, well, first things first, we'll see that our machine is named correctly. We still need to activate Windows. Let's see. Let's go to System. Let's go to About and make sure we're part of the domain. Yes, we are. So our new full device name, fully qualified domain name, is 11e-lab4.labnet20.local. And it's a virtual CPU, 8 gig of RAM. And then there should be a way on here to see our IP address. Advanced hardware and connection properties. There we go. So our IP address for this machine is 20.94. Okay. So if we want to connect up to this remotely, we can do it because in Unify, when we set that up, we allowed the 5 subnet and the 20 subnet to talk to one another, right? So let's go try that. So now I have the remote desktop connection program up and running, and I've entered that IP address of that machine is 20.94, and let's see if we can connect. All right, so we need to come up here and make sure we enter LabNet 20 and our login name on that domain and our password, and you can see now it's changed the domain to the proper domain name. Click on OK. Yes. And what it'll do is it'll bring up a remote desktop window, and there we go. We are now connected. Now, if this little title bar bothers you, you can click on the little pin, and that title bar will disappear. The problem can be, though, sometimes getting it to reappear. So I just leave it tacked up there. If you need to move it around, you can, if you need to slide it across the top to see something, you can do that. All right, so now the next thing we want to do is we want to go out to a command prompt because we're going to get our server set up. So if we go to NVIDIA control panel and we go to server licensing, we'll see that we're not licensed for anything. It takes a minute for it to come up because it's NVIDIA. So if we go to manage license, you'll see that, we don't have one. You need a token to acquire a license. So let's do that. So we're going to go out to the, we're going to right click on the start menu, go to admin terminal, and we're going to copy and paste a command. So here's our command. Now, I'll explain it to you after I paste it. So this is a curl command, and what it's going to do is it's going to tell us, it's going to go to this website, and this is the part you'll need to change on yours, because I have my software and my Docker image running on 5.44 at port 8443. So you'll need to know that part. This is in order for you to get your token, and this is outlined in the instructions on the GitHub repository. So just follow those and you should be good. So if I hit enter here, I should be successful and I should have received a token, and it looks like I did. I've now received a token. So now with a token, I can tell the server, hey, I'm authentic. Here I am. Can you give me a license? Now what'll happen is that'll either pop up down here or it won't. So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to restart the licensing service, or at least the monitoring service for the license. So we'll do that with that command. And again, that's clearly outlined in those instructions at the GitHub repository as well. Now, hopefully what will happen is we'll get a notification here in a moment or two about NVIDIA getting a license. If not, we can just open it up and we can come back here to, and there it is. So it says your system is licensed for NVIDIA RTX Virtual Workstation expiring 11/2/2025. So I think it gives you like a 90-day, and then you can, renew as you need to. And keep in mind, folks, I don't know the legality of this. I'm doing it in a Homelab. I don't think NVIDIA is going to come after me. I'm not condoning its use. And please don't ever use something like this in a commercial environment. That's not morally right, okay? These people created this software. They should be entitled to make the money off it. I'm a firm believer in that. But they didn't make this software. This is an open source project somebody's working with to kind of help Homelabbers see what it would be like if we could actually afford that grid licensing server. So now the word on the street is because AMD is going to be offering quite a bit of competition to Nvidia. God, I've been hearing that for years. That they're going to unbind some of their more draconian licensing requirements. I'm not going to hold my breath for Nvidia to do the right thing. But anyway, there you go. It is now set up, and we have the Nvidia driver loaded. And so now if we go to Task Manager, we should see clearly that the Nvidia driver is loaded, and it is working. And in fact, just to make sure, we're gonna do a little test. We're gonna go out and we're gonna put a program in called Furmark. So let's see if it'll if it'll allow me to install that. So I'm going to connect to my server on my network, and we're just going to copy this over to the work folder, and then we'll run it, and then we'll see what kind of results we get with it. Yeah, I know there's a new version of Hermark, but for these older video setups, I just use this one. And I want him to create a desktop shortcut. And then it should prompt us to run it. And yes, we will. And hopefully it'll see it. I've been able to run it before remotely. And yes, it does see it. The grid P44Q. So let's benchmark. Let's do the preset FHD. And we'll go. We'll see how it does. So you can see the frames per second. You can't hear it because I've got the noise adaptation on my microphone, but the fans have sped up in the machine a little bit. And yeah, it looks like we're getting about 60 frames per second, which is to be expected. We'll see what it gets at the end. And this is running at 1920 by 1080. So this video card would be, acceptable for the least. Well, no, you could. Speaking from experience, I've run a VM with a shared video card before, and the performance was not horrible. It was actually, if I didn't know I was running on a virtual machine, I would probably just think I was on a slightly older generation machine. There you go. So the score was 3,601 points. So compare your score. No, thank you. I'd rather not. But there you go. It's working. The drivers are installed. We could come back after 90 minutes to make sure this is still working. Is it 90 minutes that it stops working? The driver unloads if you don't have a licensed server? I don't know. It's above my pay grade. All right, so I've just activated the machine and verified that was working. So now I wanted to do a reboot, start from scratch, and make sure that when I log in, that I have everything I need, that I get a license from the license server for the video card, that I'm able to access the video card, that I'm actually able to see the rest of the network, and that Windows is indeed activated. So we come here to settings and system, and then activation. And then you can see our activation state is active. We are running Windows 11 Enterprise. And then if we come over here, we should see our drive mappings. Yep, we do. Going back to our servers. Now, one thing we don't see is the login screen when we logged in. So I'm going to go, come with me. I'll take you with me. All right, boys and girls. So now we're over on our domain controller, which is running Windows Server 2019. And you're probably asking yourself, well, why? Well, because I need to put these computers I've added into the right groups. So, let me see. Let me refresh. There we go. So there's the 3 computers that I have added recently as I've gone through this process of, getting them in out of sysprep mode and loading the drivers and the licensing server and whatnot. And what happens is when you join them to the domain, it adds them to the LabNet 20.local computers organizational unit. And then it's up to you to drag these items into whatever organizational unit you want them to inherit the group policy from. So I have an organizational unit called Windows 11 under workstation computers, and I want all of these computers to inherit all of these group policies under here. And you can't see the group policies, but they're there. Trust me. So it's really very simple. All we're going to do is select all three of these units. I'm holding down the shift key, and then we're going to right click, and we're going to move these, and we're going to move them to Lab 20, Workstation, Windows 11, and click OK. So now what that means is these three machines are going to get their group policy inheritance from this object here. So now the next thing we need to do is go ahead and run a command on the Windows server called gp update /force. And when you do that, what it does is it pushes the policy out to all the other domain controllers on the network. And ignore that failed policy. We'll fix that one of these days. But it'll push that policy out to all of the machines out on our network. Now, so what should happen if I come over here to this machine and I go out to the command prompt, I'm going to do the same thing. GP update, and I'm going to force it. So now it's pushing the updated policy to this workstation. You can see it's doing that because it's also failing at the same key. But don't worry, it's not going to stop us from what we need to do. Now I'm going to go ahead and log off or sign out. And then I'm going to sign right back in. And hopefully we will see something. Was that 20.94 I was just connected to? Oh my goodness. What are you, 20.94? Yeah. All right. So if we go to 20.94, here we go. Log in as Adama. Now pay close attention, because if we've inherited our group policies, we should now see a welcome message, and we do. Welcome to LabNet 20, where science meets shenanigans. And then it tells you what you're authorized to do and not do on this network. And what I've done is I've made a mirror of a network I would create for a client that is under NIST or CMMC compliance regulations, so that I had a playground to play with that stuff in while I was here. So this machine has inherited those policies now and thinks it's part of that domain, and this is the final step in setting this unit up, and it's working well. It's contacted the licensing server. We've got should have enough RAM free. We have a video card with 4 gig of RAM free. Let's just verify that we've got our licensing, that we've been assigned a license to this machine. Should have been. Yes, we have, and it's valid until the 2nd of November. So there you go. So there you go. You can see how I'm taking my servers that I've bought secondhand, that I only spent a few $100s on instead of thousands of dollars. I'm taking off-the-shelf open source software, namely Proxmox. I'm able to create a Homelab. I'm able to create a NAS. I'm able to use both Synology on my network and TrueNAS set up in a virtual machine. I've got my networking all set up, and all this in my Homelab. And that's what this series of videos has been all about. And so what I wanted this video to be was kind of a merging of almost all of those technologies. And as you can see, we've got, quite the breadth and width of virtual machines running on this Proxmox node. And now when this Dell R730 runs, it's pulling about 250 to 290 watts, even at idle. Those video cards, I think they idle at 15 or 25 watts. So that's 30 or 50 watts right there. So it's a little piggish on power. It's not something I leave on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's why it's a lab machine. I only boot it up when I need it. But I hate it when I have all this kind of equipment sitting there and nobody's using it. It really makes me quite sad. And those Tesla P40s, if you've been following the timeline with them, you know the treasure I parted with to get them and what I had to go through to get them to work. And thank God for Sakura. If he hadn't been here to help me, I would have given up on them a long time ago. But I saw it through with his help and was able to get them up and running. And they still have value to me. And this is where they're going to be valuable, because I'll be able to put them in a work environment, in a work group environment, right? In a home lab environment, and test it and see what might or might not work. So that's why this series is so important. So important. Even if you can't afford all the equipment I got, build a small home lab with mini PCs. It can be done. Just get in and get your feet wet, and then spend the necessary time on learning Docker and those kind of things. But once you've got the networking down pat, and start setting up your Windows networks like we're doing here, you can see what I've tried to show people is the power of why I use Windows Server and why I use Windows Active Directory. If you're going to run Windows machines, whether it be on your home network, your office network, it allows you to have more finite control over the machines. And if you're an IT support person, that is the most important thing to you, is being able to control these machines and lock them down to protect people from themselves, or at least it is in my instance. We hope you found this video entertaining and informative. As always, please do me a favor and smash that like button on the way out the door. And if you're inclined to comment, leave your comments down in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. Donate if you're so inclined. PayPal, Patreon, YouTube join function, either one. We're trying to get together some money to buy either a 5090 16 gig video card, or an AMD 70, I forget the series. It's their AI approved card that runs about $800 and has 24 gig of RAM. So all of the funds that I make, either from PayPal or YouTube or Patreon, are going toward the purchase of this item. I've just recently purchased another RX 3060 12 gig card to put in another server. But if you want to help out, send us a message or send us some money, and it'd be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click that notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Thanks again for coming to see me. I appreciate it. And don't forget, we'll see all of you on the other side.
I've been watching old Unky Joe. From Texas heat to where the cacti grow. Fixing server, solar power in the land. Hoping that his plans all stand. Making life a touch more bright underneath those southern lights.